Don't forget to
Hello,
subscribe.
everyone. I am Swapnil, a marketing strategist at the Marketers, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. COVID-19 has brought about uncertainty and has impacted businesses at large, forcing B2B organizations to rethink and realign their marketing strategy. The marketing function and its job role, as we know, is not going to be the same hereafter. Traditional processes and techniques are already being replaced with lean and agile digital processes. Digital technologies are growing more sophisticated and are reshaping consumer engagement. The decision maker is no longer working from confines of their workplace. The emerging new normal is integrated, data, and intent driven. It is taking into account unprecedented disruptions and is banking on technology to do the heavy lifting. Marketers need to rely on insights and foresights for changing consumer behavior and market trends. And from the right way to communicate to the most impactful way to reach out to their target buyers, marketing leaders are facing new challenges every day. In this background, they need to lead their organizations to adapt while demonstrating a return on each buck. ROI is never out of the picture. So, how does this translate for IT and SaaS companies, especially in the APAC region? Today, we will pick up these questions in our webinar with Madhulika Ray, Marketing Manager of APAC and Emerging Markets at Thomson Reuters, and Enoch Pakanati, CEO at the Marketers, while I'll be moderating the session. Just to give you a quick introduction of the agenda today, we'll be talking about how COVID-19 has impacted the organization's marketing strategy at large, and how various organizations are reacting to it. What are the changes that are there in communication and content? What targeting and pipeline growth now looks like, and what will be the strategy going forward? We will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar, and while we go through the webinar, we can you can type in your questions in the questions tab that you see to the right-hand corner of your screen, and we can take it up towards the end. This will be a 45-minute webinar. Now, quickly introducing you to our speakers of the day. Madhulika, as I mentioned earlier, she's the marketing manager for APAC and emerging markets. She pioneered the ABM program in India at Thomson Reuters and has been working with multiple teams across the Asia and Pacific regions to help the organization amplify the sales pipeline. She has a knack for technology and is always experimental in her approach. Also with us is Enoch. He holds more than 14 years of experience in marketing and has built and scaled sales and marketing teams at IT organizations. He has worked with Fortune 50 and Fortune 100 clientele and has mentored and defined strategies for startups, mid-size, and Fortune companies. He is the CEO of Marketers, and I'm happy to share that we had won the IT SMA Marketing Excellence Award, Gold Award in 2019, and we're also recognized by Clutch among the top advertising marketing agencies and B2B companies in 19 and 2020, respectively. Without further ado, I'd like to get started with the major things that we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into the nitty-gritties, I just wanted to take a quick moment and ask Madhulika and Enoch a very quick question. How has the pandemic affected the work that you guys are doing? We have two varied perspectives over here. One from an MNC spread across more than 100 countries, and the other from a marketing agency working with leading B2B organizations. So, Madhulika, I think Madhulika has dropped out due to some technical issues. I'll start with Enoch. Enoch, if you can take up this question.
Yeah, thanks, Swapnil. Glad to be doing another webinar this month. And thanks to all the attendees for taking time out for this discussion today. So while Madhulika joins in, I'd like to give some of my perspectives in terms of how this has affected. And I think we've had this conversation a lot of times. A lot of you are already listening to so many other webinars and events and going through so much content. So the overall situation, itself, obviously, if we look at the industry at large, in the US, over 38 million people have lost their jobs. It has obviously affected a lot of the industries, and so depending on, again, the kind of industry and the kind of it has, COVID has had a lot of impact on travel, hospitality, in complete, I would say, how should I put it? Like restaurants and almost all the food industry has taken a huge impact. E-commerce has picked up. Healthcare is still doing okay. So there are certain industries that are are doing I would say fairly better, but it has definitely impacted a lot of industries. Real estate is down. So I think for especially for marketing leaders, it has become very important to figure out what strategies work for them. What kind of how they should shift their overall marketing strategy. What is it? How can they engage with their existing clients and make sure that they're retaining their existing customers while also being able to bring in new clients and customers on board. So that has become very important for marketing leaders right now. And I'll let Madhulika also take up this question and explain how COVID is actually impacting businesses and what marketing leaders need to be prepared with.
We seem to be facing some technical issues with Madhulika. Madhulika, are you able to hear us?
No, I think there's some. Madhulika is facing some technical or some bandwidth issues. So I think this is given that we're all moving to virtual, so technology.
Yeah, these are the
reliable
issues that we face.
Yeah.
Vivek. Yeah. So moving forward, Enoch, we will engage with Madhulika when she is back. So the webinar, we wanted to talk about communication, content, and positioning. And before we jump onto that, we have this video with us that we wanted to show. It's just a quick 2-minute video. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have already seen this.
When we first opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978.
For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years.
In 90 years.
Over 100 years.
Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin.
We will do what we've always done.
Take care of people.
We're people.
People.
People. People.
People.
People.
And family.
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 Family. Family.
Family.
Family.
Family.
Family.
Families are families. Families.
Even now. Especially now.
Especially now.
Right now.
Now more than ever.
More than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
In times like this.
At times like these.
During these difficult times.
In these troubled times.
Challenging times.
Trying times.
In these times of uncertainty.
During this time of great uncertainty.
During these uncertain times.
During these uncertain times.
In uncertain times.
In uncertain times.
Uncertain times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
This unprecedented moment in our history.
It's time of social distancing.
While things have slowed down.
As we turn more inside.
While the doors may be closed,
While the distance between us has gotten bigger,
The more we stay apart,
we still find ways to stay close, even when we're apart.
Even if we can't stand closer than 6 feet,
we can all stay connected to work, school, and most importantly, to each other.
there's still ways to touch each other.
all without leaving the comfort and safety of your home.
Without leaving the safety of your home.
From home.
Your home.
At home. 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 Home.
Home. That's the key.
Buick and GMC are here to help.
Con Edison is here to help.
Here to help.
Our teams are here.
We are here.
We're here.
We're here.
Here for you.
Here for you.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. We are here for you.
We're here for you.
we are here for you.
We'll be here for you.
Runnings is here for you.
We're still here for you.
We're with you. We're part of your community.
So you can trust us.
You can count on us.
And we'll get through this. Together.
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 Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
We're together.
Together.
And together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
MasterCard.
I'm guessing you already have gotten the gist of what we're trying to position over here. The whole video talks about how various brands have been talking about the same thing. Every single brand has been talking about how they're here for us, how people are working from home, and how everyone is impacted, their families and everything. In this, although, yeah, I'm not saying that this was not needed, this was definitely needed to reposition themselves. When talking about the whole scenario and communication, brand communication perspective, how do companies stand out in this scenario? This is a question we get asked a lot, and Enoch, we'll start off with you. How do we stand out?
Yeah, so again, a lot of companies, again, like we just watched, the focus is on empathy, the focus is on making sure that we show that human element in everything that we do, just concern for people, because end of the day, we don't know what our prospects are going through. We don't know what, how the entire situation is affecting our own clients, our prospects, and things, and so on and so forth. So, but at the same time, it's also very important for the organization to keep moving, to make sure that we have the runway to sustain, to get the required cash flows, to make sure we're able to keep our employees, keep their jobs. So it's very important for organizations, especially to, I would say, focus on empathy, focus on assisting clients and figuring out what can be, what we can help them with, and how we can reposition ourselves. Basically, maybe you'll have to change your brand messaging, you have to change your communication strategy overall in terms of the kind of collateral that you create or the kind of outreach activities that you do. So you still continue doing what you're doing, but you'll obviously have to reposition and realign yourself to the current situation, and and then see how, and then based on the test method, you have to see what is working for you, and how you have to keep making the difference.
Also, Madhulika, coming to you, and welcome back. We are glad you're connected again. Absolutely all right. These are some glitches that we face on a regular basis these days, working from home. This is what working from home is all about. Coming back to the question, do products and brands need to be repositioned to align with the current times?
I mean, I don't think anyone in the space right now would say no to that, largely because the customers that we're targeting, the businesses that we are working with, they have completely changed the way they're working. So they're solving different kind of problems. And if you continue to if you continue to not position yourself differently or align to how they are working or the new ways of working, I think you'll just miss out on the race. So I think there's no question of us asking, do we need to reposition? But I think the larger question is, how much do you reposition? Do you completely move away from your core? I mean, some organizations are completely re-looking at a different strategy, and that's a complete rejig of their business models, while some companies are just slightly changing the messaging that they're going with to the market. So I think it's more important to first internally understand where is your strength and how can you address the market. But repositioning is I mean, no one has a choice but to reposition, because if you don't, you're going to sound tone deaf to the market if you continue saying what you were saying, say, 2 months, 3 months back.
That's totally, that's exactly what we've been hearing as well. And talking about repositioning and talking about content that is going out in the market, how has content creation and marketing changed from an organization's perspective, largely?
I think it's changed for the good in some ways, because I mean, as much as we say we've always tried to be customer focused, there's always this, pressure. I wouldn't say pressure, but sales driven communication has always found its place somewhere. But I think right now we are forced to only think customer. And with that kind of mindset, the way you look at content also completely changes. Now, there's both an opportunity and a big responsibility, I feel. Opportunity in the sense you can really stand out in the way you're creating your content by being extremely relevant to your target audience. Responsibility is the time to market. Now, we just saw a video, and thanks for playing that video. It's a good one. And it just shows that it's not just creating content. There is so much fatigue in the market right now. There's so much content being showed to people, and people are really actually tired of content. So where marketers really need to come in creatively is try and understand where the opportunity is and take that responsibility of creating relevant content. And I think a lot of focus is now going to be into how do you repurpose the vast amount of existing content you have, because I don't think any organization can use their, to our point earlier, if you're repositioning, you can't use any of your existing content as is. So I think from a content both creation and repurposing point of view, it's completely changed for marketers.
Okay, and with this same conversation, how does personalization matter when we talk about content at large?
Yeah.
How much do we think we need to personalize? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so agree with a lot of the points that Madhulika just mentioned. So from a content creation standpoint, and a lot of organizations have been swift to adopt as well. But the problem is that there is always a juncture where we see there is a huge amount of information coming out on one particular area, right? So we saw COVID, the situation kind of flaring up sometime in March, and a lot of organizations suddenly started putting, how do you navigate through COVID? What do you do around COVID? So that became like the huge thing. Now everywhere you see, you go to any blog, the first blog that you say is COVID. So it can be related to something, but still, so there will always be that trend coming in, depending on situations. But then, this question says, how do you personalize? So again, personalization depends on your target audience, who you want to go after. Obviously, you'll have to put yourself in their shoes to understand, what matters to them, because it can never be, I can do this for you or I can do that for you. You need to first understand what is your situation, what is the challenge you're facing, and how can I then create my content or do some sort of solution mapping to say, this is what works for you and this is how you need to possibly navigate through this particular challenge. And again, the content type or the formats of content again can be different. depending on the kind of campaigns you're running, say if your organization is executing account-based marketing and you're doing a 1:1 outreach to maybe like 5 to 10 accounts, like large accounts, then you obviously need to understand what is that pain area for that particular account, especially given a certain current situation. If your account consisted of a airlines company that was doing really well about 3 or 4 months ago, and now their people have lost jobs, obviously they're not going to spend even if you do you have to put in all your efforts to personalize, right? So you have to identify where the opportunity lies. You also have to identify, what is it that matters to them at this point. How can you customize, or how can you kind of, change your solution to fit their needs, and then obviously push the content in formats that will be easily consumed by them, and easy for them to get back to you.
Thank you so much, Enoch. I just wanted to take a minute to mention about the poll that we have going on. If you see to the top right corner of your screen, there's a tab called polls. There's a poll out there. If you can take a minute to answer that, it'll be really helpful. And a lot of people have posted some questions. We will be taking them up towards the end of the webinar. We have some time set out for that. But for now, I'd like to move on to the next section. We have talked about content and communication, but there is also a huge section wherein ROI and revenue is important. And when we talk about ROI, how targeting and our approach and channels have changed to meet those targets, meet those revenue marketing metrics and KPIs. We want to focus on that part a bit. Talking about that, what marketing approaches will work going forward and are working on right now, actually? ABM, traditional lead generation, or inbound? I'd like to ask Madhulika to start off with this.
So I think there isn't an easy answer to this, because first, what kind of company are you? It first depends on that. So if you are, traditional lead gen, I think, if you're all a set of B2B tech marketers, we'd be like, no, that's not going to work. But maybe it does work for some B2C companies. For large enterprise marketers, there is no question that ABM wouldn't work, and inbound has its own place. So if I just have to sort of give some examples in terms of, where what could work. If I look at a B2B tech company, which has existing customers, I think investing in ABM into your existing customers is key, because at this point in time, even if people buy, they're going to buy from trusted brands. So if you're going to implement an account-based marketing for prospects, the sales cycle is much longer. And I'm not sure if you're going to get an ROI instantly. So from an ABM perspective, you need to see who is the right target market for ABM, whether you want to go white space, you want existing customers, upsell to them, try and understand what their requirements are, because currently everyone does have, if we speak of technology, some requirement in technology. So you may want to invest in ABM there. If you speak of inbound, then, if you're new in the market, it's again difficult and a longer sales cycle if you go into inbound. But if you're an existing brand, if you've been around for a while, or if you're doing something innovative, inbound may work. Another way of sort of looking into this and how companies are using inbound creatively and smartly are by giving trials. And it's been used as a customer acquisition strategy. At the end of the day, you're getting them into your pipeline and you're giving them free trials, eventually hoping for them to convert. Now, for brands which haven't built that trust with a new segment and white space, that's a good way to implement inbound, get them into your pipeline, and further convert them. So I think it's to most of the question, I think it's first really understanding where you're at and where you should put energies, and then using approach rather than looking at an approach in isolation. Enoch, you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So ABM and inbound are both long-term strategies. They're not, you start today and you're going to see the results tomorrow. Traditional lead generation methods usually focus on outbound direct calling and warm calling, or cold emailing in bulk, or you might even do some segmented campaigns, but you're still pushing out so many generic messages to your target prospects and expecting a response. ABM on the other hand, or inbound on the other hand, inbound focuses again. If you're doing organic inbound marketing, then you obviously have to wait 6 or 9 months to actually see some results coming in. ABM is the same way. You need a minimum of 1 year commitment to actually properly execute a 1:1 or a 1:2 ABM campaign. So in the current situation, if we have to look at what works for you and what you need to focus on, you will still need to have a long-term focus. But if you're looking at it from a say, I can only spend this much, I don't have a lot of budget to spend on, and but I still need to get business. I still need to maintain cash flow. I would say you need to have a more of a one-is-to-many approach from an ABM standpoint. Make it personalized. Still create content that will meet your prospects' pain points, and use inbound effectively. So this is the time when a lot of companies can actually spend the time and energy on improving your websites, to improving your content, making sure that you're able to rank in SEO, set up your marketing automation. So a lot of things can be done, and this will also be a good starting point. So once the situation ends and once markets start coming back to normal, and when businesses are looking at investing on new projects, you're already starting to rank for certain target keywords, and you're able to drive new leads and conversion. So you obviously need a hybrid approach here, and you need to again also do an A/B test and a trial and testing. Obviously you have to be experimental in your approach and see what is working, and then take that.
Thanks, Enoch. I just wanted to add here that right now there are a lot of experts saying that targeting will need to change to need-based and instead of just profile-based. There's a lot of focus on intent and how various organizations are looking at it. So I just wanted your opinions about how intent-based targeting is going to be the key focus now. Do you think it is going to be? Madhulika?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should always have been intent-based marketing, but somewhere we've always found it easy to do like a spray and pray approach. I think it becomes even more important at this point in time to first understand intent. To my earlier point, your businesses are working differently. They have different requirements. You can't, in the first place, you can't even rely on intent data that you were using, pre-COVID. So the first step is to understand what are the different intent signals now, what are your customers looking at, and sort of be really close to your customers first to understand intent, and then target them. And profile based will always be there as an overarching guiding umbrella, but I think intent based marketing it's non-negotiable, especially at this point in time. And like I said, there's so much content fatigue, and you have an opportunity to really cut through your messages only if you match intent to your personalized messaging.
All right. Enoch, what do you think about it? Is there any variation when it comes to industry? Can we rely on the intent data right now, as Madhulika mentioned?
Yeah. So intent is again of various types, right? So I completely agree with Madhulika. Unless it's not negotiable. Obviously, you'll have to make sure that you're focusing on what the client wants and what their needs are. But at the same time, if you're following tools, say you're using tools like say Bombora or any other ABM tool, or any tools like DiscoverAll that give you scoops, they're giving you a lot of information that is slightly old, which is obviously picked up from cookie data and some other signals. Third-party signals. So if you're relying on that data to see, okay, these companies are now looking at hiring these kind of people or trying to invest on certain projects, that may not be the right way to look at it. If it was a completely normal situation, then yeah, by all means go ahead. But right now, a lot of decisions have changed. A lot of projects have been put on hold. A lot of budgets have been put on hold. So, but there is also investment happening in certain areas. So if you are catering to a certain industry or a certain vertical, or if your product can fit into that criteria, or those particular verticals where there is still intent, where there is actually more need, where you can add value to them. I think those are the areas you definitely have to focus on. You'll have to make sure you're able to drive your overall personalization to campaigns, to content, and all the other aspects. So you still have to make sure that your overall marketing is effective and able to generate results in that direction.
Okay. Talking about technology, you threw in some names over there, Bombora, and there are a lot of other technologies when it comes to intent, and also various other MarTech. So if we just look at previous crises and various financial crises that we have been in, Salesforce and Loco emerged out of the 2001 dot-com burst, Marketo, Hootsuite out of the 2008 financial crisis. Right now, we are at again a juncture where we need to rely on technology because, yeah, of course, everyone's working from home, and there's a huge shift from interpersonal connections that were more in person. But yeah, we are relying on technology every day right now. How is MarTech going to change? What innovations do we need with respect to MarTech? I know this is a very open-ended question, and this is something that we cannot really comment on sitting over here. There's something that, yeah, okay, this happened, and now we've started using it. But I'd still like to pick your brains over this. Inak, if you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, so the market, if you look at the overall tech market or MarTech tech stack right now, you have more than 8,000 different products out there in the market. Those are the products, at least we know of. I'm pretty sure there are thousands of other products that we even haven't heard of yet. But are they solving the core problem is what we'll have to look at, because depending every single campaign that you do, every single type of any whether it's branding or events or outreach or ABM or inbound marketing automation, you have so many applications to choose from or tools to choose from, and not one tool solves your entire problem. So there is always an opportunity for products to come in and solve that problem, and products have always done that. They've always done something slightly better than what a different product could not do, and that has always opened the overall landscape for a lot of competition in a lot of areas. So this current situation will also open it up. If you look at it, I have to be very candid. A lot of companies have started looking at these larger ABM platforms as cost centers, or let's say where they're actually spending so much money to drive certain campaigns, which now they can start using the same spend on maybe smaller activities to still keep their runway and keep their budgets intact. So that is a problem that I think a few products can solve by being in more friendly in terms of the marketing and overall spend and things like that. So innovation always happens. Innovation happens on a daily basis. Every single organization obviously needs to innovate. Existing marketing products and technology stacks, they need to innovate. I'm pretty sure this has taught a lot of things to a lot of organizations. So yeah, it's very broad. I don't think I'll have a specific answer to this. It's most likely I'll need to be some NASA scientist or something to answer this. But yeah, right now I think that's all I have.
Sure. Madhulika, so talking about from MarTech ownership to channels, marketing channels, digital is definitely on the rise. This is something that we cannot even counter right now. But at the same time, there was this huge funding that happened. Postal.io, that is a direct mail company, they raised somewhere around $9 million on 5th May to be specific. How do you think which channels are going to work out? Although we are relying on digital, do you think there's still room for things like direct mail? Is there still room for personalization via any other means? What all have you been trying out from an organization's point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think while digital is on the rise, digital is serving a slightly different purpose. If you look at it in context of usability, digital is solving the larger top of the funnel awareness, bringing in leads, your tofu leads into your organization. But I think for organizations such as us or any B2B tech for that matter, who have specialized solution, direct mail is absolutely indispensable, because if firstly getting a direct mail contact requires you to earn trust of that particular contact, because unless you're buying data, which is not the ideal way to approach direct mail. Getting a direct mail is either by giving out content, using inbound, etc. And once you've won that trust, I think that's the biggest barrier that you've crossed, right? And those channels and anything coming from owned channels or direct mail channels just have higher receptiveness from the perspective of the prospect. So I think innovations in direct channels from a B2B tech perspective, especially when you're trying to apply ABM, I think is not just getting more traction, but I think in the coming days, we'll have to innovate, what we mean by direct mail. How do you track direct mail? How do you track response from direct mail? And how can you really put effort and be creative? Because direct mail also means that you're re-looking at the budgets you're putting in direct mail. You can't really bombard the market. And so you have to choose your prospects specifically, and your messaging has to be very customized. So I see ABM going very well hand in glove with a ABM plus direct mail sort of a strategy.
Sure. Thank you, Madhulika. That was insightful. Talking about channels again, what other channels are working out, and especially with virtual events. Virtual events there's a huge boom of events. Right now, I'm pretty sure there are like multiple events going on in the same topics and in the same regions, targeting the same people. So what do you have to say how virtual events are? What is the state of virtual events, and how physical events will they return?
Absolutely, I have no doubt that physical events will return. So we just concluded a virtual event yesterday for a large industrial automation company. We had over 600 registrations, almost 400 people attended the event, and it was a very successful event, and we were able to drive or get all the required target audience to the virtual event. Now, the story behind this is this organization or this company is almost a $6.6 billion Fortune organization, and they have always invested in physical events. And soon after the COVID situation started and some of their action events got cancelled, they had to start looking at other ways to go to virtual events. Now, having said that, they have seen a very good ROI with virtual events. Given that they're able to engage on a digital platform, they're able to get all the required people on board. They're driving a lot more messaging and content and nurturing campaigns seamlessly. So all of that is happening. Unlike a physical event where you go meet people, obviously it creates a lot of personal rapport and you're able to exchange your cards and everything. But from an ROI standpoint, from a spend standpoint, virtual events are definitely helping organizations to do a lot more with a lot less. But physical events are definitely going to be back. And we a lot of if you've been to GITEX, if you've been to CES, if you've been to any large industry event, obviously people want to see the products out there. They want to get a look and feel. They want to touch and feel. They want to make sure that they're choosing, or if they have a need, they want to go and pick the right products and talk to people and get actual insights and also attend the conferences in person. So that experience is obviously very different from a virtual event. So it is definitely going to return, but I would say an organization that was spending maybe like five physical events in a year might cut it down and spend like 4 events on virtual and one event on one physical event. So that change will definitely happen.
Thanks, Inak. Madhulika, how is your organization standing when it comes to events? Like, are you guys planning any physical events? Do you see any return anytime soon?
No, I think I partly agree with Enoch there that what the physical events solved for an organization, that will continue to be there in terms of networking, building that trust instantly. I don't think it can be completely replaced. But having said that, there's a huge section that wasn't the adoption of virtual events for a lot of our B2B prospects was very low, which has gone considerably high. And not just that, just in terms of organization trying to reach out to them, a physical event or a roundtable would have restricted audiences. With virtual events, organizations have been able to reach out to larger audiences than they would have done traditionally. So I think when we are in a more comfortable environment, both will be there in their own space. But having said that, I think virtual events need to work a little more in terms of conversions, because when you do a physical event, the kind of connections you make there, are stronger. But a virtual event, if you don't nurture them and don't put them in a proper funnel, you'll lose the audience there. So I think we need to sort of innovate when we're doing virtual, but the balance would be definitely, maybe virtual events going up and physical events going down.
Glad to know.
Yeah.
We've talked about almost everything right now. We tried to cover a lot of ground over here. If we try to sum it up into a strategic focus for our short term and long term, we've got Q3 and Q4. Q2 is almost over and we still have no idea where we are. But yeah, Q3 and Q4, how are companies planning for it? How you're helping out various organizations, and Madhulika, your own organization, how are you guys planning for the short term or maybe 2021? What is the strategic focus for both?
I think from a short-term perspective, again, huge responsibility on marketers, because you can't ignore revenue, right? To your point, revenue marketing, it needs to be done. So the short-term focus really is how do you collaborate with your internal teams and identify that opportunity. It may not be the traditional opportunity you were chasing 3 months back, but where do you see new pockets of opportunity, be it a customer upsell, be it deprioritizing some of your major products and reprioritizing some of the smaller products just to maintain that, the revenue that you're focusing on. So I think one part is sort of focused on revenue marketing, but it also needs to be balanced out by building trust. I mean, at a point where every brand is trying to, grab eyeballs of your prospects, you can't not be present in the market, but being present with relevant messaging. And that just shows, how important marketers have become in the current scenario, and how much work they need to do creatively using the right kind of technology or processes to be able to balance both. I think long-term strategy would be more organization driven, and marketing needs to stay close to that and stay really close to customers, because we are interfacing both between our product, what the strategy is, and what customers are saying. So if we isolate ourselves from either, we'll be completely lost in terms of what needs to be done for 2021. I think the right approach would be close to your customers, use your social listening tools appropriately, communicate that to your organization, make sure you understand their strategy and sort of marry the two, and then take some time to plan for 2021. I mean, that's I don't have a magic answer there, but I think from my perspective, it needs to be balanced out in that particular manner.
Great. What's your perspective over here?
Yeah, I think we had this conversation yesterday, so I'll just repeat the same thing. See, we don't know what the future is going to look like. Obviously, we all of us plan for the future. We're all optimistic and have big plans for the future. And I think the same needs to carry on for businesses as well. The only thing is, you also have to look at the realistic situation. And be very realistic, optimistic. At the same time, you'll also have to be pessimistic. You'll also have to see what could possibly go wrong. So So from a short-term perspective, I would say, look at how you can survive. Look at how you can make sure that you're able to sustain your organization, make sure that your organization is able to sail through this phase, and obviously come out as a winner. So the long term obviously should be on how can you realign your strategies, how can you completely refocus your marketing. You cannot be using the same thing that you used last year or even 3 months ago. You have to start from scratch. You'll have to go back to the drawing board and see what is what you need to kind of work on. What are the how are you going to completely change the way your organization or your marketing and sales function has worked so far. If you have not never aligned your sales and marketing teams, and each of them have been working in two different tangents, then it's time for you to realign and reprioritize your goals and make sure that all teams are working together towards the same goal. Make sure that the content you're creating to the campaigns you're running, everything is aligned and is able to generate results for you. So maybe you're not able to meet the kind of goals that you set for the year, but at least it will help you to keep some business coming in so that you can keep the organization moving forward. Long term, obviously, like I said, look at how you can leverage ABM, look at how you can leverage inbound. Start off with maybe less in lower investment options where you don't have to put in money into doing a lot of programmatic ads or IP-based ads, which obviously will not work at this time. So you will focus majorly on how can you target certain accounts or industries, how can you create content that will work for them, what campaigns you could possibly run. From an inbound standpoint, how can you drive audience to your website and drive conversions from there? So all of these are organic activities that don't require a lot of investment. They will still require people investment, but say if your organization has less work and there are more people sitting on bench, bring them on board, give them the right training, and get them to work with you.
Thank you so much, Srinath and Mallika. That has been a great session so far. We literally uncovered a lot of insights. We got some really insightful opinions from you guys. We will be now switching over to our Q&A. A lot of people have posted some questions, and if you have any other questions, guys, please feel free to post it over here. We will start off with our first question. What are some of the ways marketers can cut through the clutter on content and format? Enoch, if you'd like to take that up.
Could you please repeat that question?
What are some of the ways marketers can cut through the clutter on content and format?
Yeah, so I think we had this discussion earlier. Clutter, I would say everyone is talking about COVID, but you obviously have to be specific. Formats, again, what will work for your organization or what will work for your end customer. So if you feel like a virtual roundtable will work, bringing in like your target audience into a single, like a webinar like this one with very focused messaging and thought leadership, then I think you'll have to focus on that format. If you think you can put together a video or an ebook or a white paper that focuses on a specific industry or a specific vertical that you're going after, and you have already identified certain pain points, and you're able to clearly solve the challenge for them, and obviously help them navigate through the current situation as well with your technology or product. I think you should definitely go ahead and do that. But instead, if you're putting out a lot of like blogs and regular marketing content out there, just says how what is COVID, how is COVID impacting you or impacting me, or there's so much content out there. So just move away from that. Focus on personalization. Focus on making sure that your content is relevant to your prospects. And I think that's all that matters.
Madhulika, you were mentioning about leads and top of the funnel leads, there's a question that says, what marketers can do to ensure we support the business, especially when tofu leads are difficult to get?
So I see two questions there. What can we do to support the business? I think is more from a revenue perspective, because the business will only be happy if you're getting them some revenue. Tofu leads are slightly different, because when you're getting tofu leads, then you have to nurture them through various stages. So, I mean, the first part I sort of answered in my last question in terms of support the business, really collaborate well with them, understand opportunities where you can see a low-hanging fruit. Ideally, best place to start that is with customers. Try and upsell to your existing customers because you've built the trust. In terms of tofu leads, I think it's for some organizations, if they really work their content strategy well, tofu leads are not difficult to get. If you're hearing what the market is talking about, if you're really close to your customers, and any content drive that you do, even if you're doing a webinar, if you're capturing the right audience, you have the right intent or titles in, I think the tofu leads will come in. The minute you start becoming generic, again to the video that Swapnil showed at the start, you can't say we are here to help and expect tofu leads to come in. We are here to help to solve a particular industry in this manner, and that's how you'll get the people from that industry who want to solve for a particular thing, and those are your tofu leads. I hope that sort of answers the question there.
That does. Talking about so there was this question that mentioned how we can gauge intent during our conversations. We were talking about intent. Enoch, would you like to take that up?
Yeah. So intent can, you can do that through different ways. One is your own market research. The other is using external tools that provide certain intent data. And obviously, you also need to know how do you define intent. Are you looking at intent of purchase, or is it basically are they looking, or how should I put it? Maybe they're just scouring for information. So once you define what you mean by intent, and you define your buyer personas as well as your target accounts, then you obviously have to look at different places. So if they might be looking at hiring certain people for a certain function, or solving a certain challenge. So if your product or service is solving that particular challenge, then it obviously means that there is an intent within the organization, and if you can bring in a much faster alternative to building something in house, or having someone on board to manage it, I think that that gives you a signal. Similarly, if you're using tools like say Discover or Bombora, they will give you third-party intent data based on cookies and other information. So where it will say this particular organization is looking for a certain kind of technology, or they're searching for a certain product. So that will give you a clear indication that if your organization provides a CRM tool, or ERP, or any other product, and if it's in line, then obviously it's a clear indicator for you that you can reach out to them. So again, and your own market research as well. So if you are doing certain surveys, or reaching out to their internal organization, or maybe you're trying to do the bottom-up approach, and then understanding some of their existing challenges, and maybe doing some giveaways or something like a gift card, and having people fill out a survey, and that survey is giving you again certain signals. If you use those signals to start your outreach.
We have a lot of questions, but since we are at a time limit, there's this one question that we'll take up and we'll close the webinar. Madhulika, this one for you especially. What kind of tools does TR currently leverage for social listening?
So I think we're a very large organization spread across a lot of countries with a lot of marketers, and use a lot of tools. But I think more than social listening, currently we are focusing on customer listening. And And a lot of large organizations, usually what happens is that the functions are siloed and customer service is working separately from marketing and sales, and everyone's doing their own thing. But right now we are trying more and more. It isn't social listening, but really listening into what feedback we are getting from sales, what feedback we are getting from customer service, and really making that the strategy of anything that we are sort of designing. So I'd say right now our go-to tool is our internal touch points, all touch points that are interfacing with our customers, and we're relying on that. And I recommend if organizations are not doing it, I think that's the first step you need to do before you sort of start looking at tools and things like that, which is, of course, indispensable. You can't not look at tools, but rely on the ones that are on your own media, especially, to Enal's point earlier, a lot of third-party intent or data that was collected about for businesses may have been obsolete by now. So rely on your first-party data or first-party channels, direct channels that you can, whether it's LinkedIn or your website, customer service, customer chat, whichever channels that you're using.
Thanks, Madhulika. Just a quick question. I know I said that was the last one, but I think this one very much aligns with the work that you're doing, Madhulika, right now. It's a totally SaaS question. Should we provide a free trial for the software? Is it a good idea?
I think, firstly, it's not a marketer's decision alone. It is an organization decision. So, for example, Adobe attracted so many leads and so much trust within the audience because they made some of their large products free, for their customers. So I think it's not a decision that you need to take in silos. Again, to my point, if you think you can do a freemium model where you can give some part of your software out for a trial, it builds trust. And currently, to my point, I think we all need to work on building trust with certain segments to be able to help them convert them into, in H2 or Q4 or 2021. So if your organization has policies which allows for a freemium model, or if you have, easier entry tools that you can give for trial, that could be one strategy, in the short term from a customer acquisition point of view, because once you've got them onto your tool, you're engaging them essentially. So then after this period, going on to another tool is a larger, it's a larger task for them than staying onto this tool. So I think it's a organization decision, but if that decision is taken from a marketing perspective, driving that trial to a customer base is, I'd say, could be beneficial.
Thank you so much, Madhulika. I think we'll end up our questions over here. If there are still some questions remaining, which they are, we will be reaching out to all of you individually, and we will help you resolve your queries. And thank you so much, Madhulika and Enoch, for taking off your time. You are pretty busy these days, and thank you so much for taking out the time for this webinar. And thank you everyone for attending the session as well. It has been a pretty insightful session. We will be sharing the recording of the webinar with you all, along with other material as well. And stay safe and stay home for now. If you're going to offices, still try to stay safe. Thank you again, and have a good day.
Thanks, Swapnil. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Madhulika. Have a good day.
Bye.